guests would say, the onsen water is nice, but I'd like to bathe in the starlight as I soak in the onsen. Yeah, outdoor bath. I personally love those myself, but we don't have the money. So I was complaining about that to one of my Ryokan colleagues. This is over a few sakes. And he's like, I'll loan you the tools. I'll teach you how to do it. Make the outdoor bath.
Hey there, and thank you for tuning in. We're excited to bring you another great conversation today. If you like the show and want to support us, please hit the subscribe button so we can keep bringing you great content week after week. And if you're feeling extra generous, give this video a like and share your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you so much. And now, let's get into it. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today we welcome Tyler. You're the owner of Kamese, a Ryokan based in Nagano Prefecture.
Correct. Yes. Good morning.
Thank you for coming, and super curious to hear your journey to Japan and to hear how you got to be a Ryokan owner and what it actually means to run such a property in Japan, with an onsen included, of course.
Of course.
But let's start at the beginning. What brought you here in the first place?
So my hometown is Seattle, Washington in the States, and it's a port city. So it's had a lot of import and export with Japan over the years. And ever since I was in high school, that was the industry I was working in.
Oh.
And all of the Japanese trading houses, Marubeni, Mitsubishi, Mitsui, Itochu, they all have offices in Seattle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then like Nintendo of America's headquarters is outside of Seattle. So there's a lot of Japanese businesses.
Wow.
And so when I got into college, I figured learning Japanese language would be good for my future career. And so I started studying Nihongo. And my parents had always had exchange students do like little mini homestays at our house. And so the summer I had started studying Japanese. We had some college kids from Osaka. They're like, hey, if you're studying Japanese, why don't you come couple weeks for your summer vacation in Osaka. So that was actually during the previous expo, the 1990, the Hanahaku in Osaka.
With the Banpaku, the park where there's a Tower of the Sun.
Yeah.
So, cool.
So that was my first time getting on a plane to go overseas, and everything I had taken as a universal truth back in Seattle, I realized wasn't a universal truth.
First time overseas and directly to Japan.
Directly to Japan. And just everything was new. Everything was different. Everything was a learning experience. And
do you remember something that particularly surprised you when you kind of got here, where you're like, oh, my universal truth with this is completely
it's everything from I didn't know humidity existed until I came here in July and August. That was just one thing. Driving on the other side of the road, I remember getting into the plane I took happened to get into Narita, and for whatever reason we didn't go straight to a terminal. We all had to go down. They brought a truck up to the plane, and you go down the stairs and get on the bus and go to the terminal. I'm like, this is like Africa. And then changed planes and flew into Itami Airport, which back then was the main airport.
In Osaka,
Yeah, in Osaka. And got out to the terminal in the big parking lot, and across the parking lot was an array of digital signs, ads. And it's like, wow, this is more modern than anything I've ever seen in Seattle. It's just, in downtown Osaka, you'd have, a business, a residence. Next to it is a rice paddy. It's just
everything mixed together.
Everything mixed together, and some of it's really modern, but some of it's really old school. But
I feel like this is still how Japan is today, though.
A lot of that is still hasn't changed from 1990. But so, anyways, after I graduated, I wanted to learn more Japanese, and the best way to do that is to live in Japan. Easiest way to live in Japan is, at the time, was either to be a French chef or an English teacher, and I don't cook, so I flew into Tokyo, crashed at a buddy's apartment, and sent my resume out to all the schools that were listed in the Japan Times, and just so happened a school in Nagano replied, and took a train out. And before that, I had done a couple little stays in Japan, one including a climb of Mount Fuji. Everyone has to do that, right? And I got to the top of Mount Fuji, and there were vending machines at the top of Mount Fuji.
Yes.
And
Still are.
It's are. So I got to Nagano, and it's called the roof of Japan because of all the mountains. And like, wow. And there's no vending machines in these mountains. This is the place for me. So, because I did a lot of hiking and camping and stuff back in Seattle. So
Yeah, you've got all the mountains around. What is it? The Mount
Mount
Rainier?
Rainier and the Cascades. Yeah, it's
So you wanted to kind of get out of the city as well. You first arrived in Osaka and then you spent some time in Tokyo, but it was like, I want to go to the countryside.
Yeah, I'd spent enough time in Tokyo to know that the concrete jungle wasn't good for my soul. So, yeah.
Did you move to like Nagano City, or was it Nagano Prefecture, but like a more rural area?
So it was actually in a city called Ueda, which is the third biggest city in Nagano. And
Isn't that the location for a famous battle or something near Ueda? Or am I mixing this up?
probably the most famous battle is Kawanakajima, which is with the Uesugi Kenshin and Takeda Shingen. That's more Nagano City.
Okay.
But there were the Sanada family, you probably know from Osaka Castle, also has a lot of the Sanada stories as well. But yeah, their main castle was Ueda Castle. So yeah, they're like one of the only... I guess it had defeated some Tokugawa armies not once but twice, so it's a pretty impressive castle.
Good reputation then.
Yeah.
So you arrived there and you start teaching English.
Yeah, and just happened that one of my students, you're chit-chatting, and she says, yeah, my family has a ryokan. I'm like, wow, because when I was living in, staying in the Kansai area, I'd been to like Arima Onsen, and it's like, I love onsens. Can I go for a bath sometime? She's like, yeah, sure. And a couple days later, I'm in the neighborhood. Can I come by? She's like, what? But yeah, so we kind of connected to the onsen, and every weekend I'd be like, I want to explore as much as possible. I don't want to do it by myself. Can you, do you want to go with me to some festival or whatever's going on? And she had a healthy curiosity about Nagano as well, even though that was, where she was born and raised. But growing up as a daughter in a ryokan, the parents are typically can't go anywhere on weekends.
Because you always have to take care of your guests.
Right. And so she was, she hadn't really been able to see much of Nagano. So together we had gone all over the prefecture. And so anyways, after I'd given myself a year and a half to do the English conversation gig. And at the end of that, I'm like, I don't really want to be away from her. But so we started talking about, the possibilities. And so we ended up, I moved back to Seattle, and she came a couple months later and did a homestay at a friend's place and studied at a local community college. And so we ended up, she decided that, Seattle would be an acceptable place to live. It's a really rainy place. And so a lot of people get to Seattle and get some serious depression because of all the rain.
Always gray and cloudy and gloomy.
Growing up there, that feels natural. You come to a place like Japan, there'll be 3 or 4 days without rain. I'm like, everything's going to turn brown. So anyways, we got married, bought a house, had our 2 boys. And that was the game plan. But the mother that was running the inn, she didn't have anyone to take it on. She's going to tear it down, make a parking lot. And so I got to backtrack about one thing. Our ryokan, it's got a lot of the original wood buildings. And most of the other inns in our town, there's about 30 inns and hotels, have torn down those wooden buildings and built multi-story concrete boxes. So if her family had been running a concrete box and was talking about making a parking lot, I'm like, yeah, go ahead. But it just so happened that it was a very traditional inn.
A historical place.
very historical place with a lot of the natural charm, the gardens and the wood construction. And I'm like, wow, that'd be such a waste. And so, yeah, we sold our house in Seattle and moved back 19, almost 20 years ago to keep it going.
So that's kind of how you got involved into the ryokan business
Yes.
at Kamese. Can you
Yes.
tell me a little bit about that ryokan? You mentioned the wood structure is still original, the only one in the area. What's the history behind this place?
So, kind of a unique history about our particular inn is it started out as an okiya, a geisha house.
Okay.
And it's kind of been expanded onto and built and added onto into its current shape. So it's got 12 rooms. So it's not too crazy. It's, as an owner, you get, if it was more than that, you kind of don't get a chance to meet each guest individually. But 12 rooms is a good size. You get to know each of the guests. And but yeah, basically the inn is you go in, there's a nice expansive lobby, and then there's a little nakani, what they call it, like a
In a garden?
inner garden, yeah, with the koi pond. And then you got the watariroka, the passageway that crosses over the garden, and you got some rooms that are kind of semi-detached, and it's the old style.
You mentioned it used to be a geisha house.
Yeah.
Was that still part of the family business back then, or was this like a different...
Yeah, so the Kamese Ryokan as an entity started out as at a different location and moved probably about 60 years ago to the current location. So it hadn't been a geisha house when the Ryokan moved there, but there's still...
Oh, interesting. So the business actually completely moved.
Yes,
to-
started out at a smaller location, and then that space became available. And yeah.
So for people, the word ryokan is used a lot
Yeah.
nowadays with the booming tourism sector here in Japan. For people that are not too familiar, what do they need to know? What is a ryokan if you had to define it simply?
Yeah, so it's traditionally it's in English it's called a traditional Japanese inn. So what does that mean? What's the difference between that and like a hotel? So basically, our guest rooms are all tatami mats, and sleeping is on a futon spread out on the tatami mats. You wear a yukata, the traditional Japanese kind of like robe. You have the onsen baths, the hot spring mineral water soaking baths. And we have outdoor baths as well. Typically, the guests have our chef's food, which is the traditional kaiseki style dinner. It's an 11-dish meal with a wide variety. You got your the steamed dish, the grilled dish, the baked dish. There's 11 different styles encompassed in that kaiseki style dinner. It's just a total immersion into traditional Japanese lifestyle, versus a hotel is basically just a room and a bed. We got the gardens. It's all, and then when guests arrive, we take them to the room and pour them a cup of tea and let them relax. It's people go there to get away from the hustle and bustle of their normal lives, and it's just a chance to be quiet and kind of get back in touch with your inner self. And
So the ryokan is a destination and an experience in itself. It's not just a place to stay.
right. So yeah, for the people out there that are considering staying in a ryokan, the worst thing you can do is check-in is from 3:00 and until, if you have dinner, 6:00. But if you're not having dinner, and then until like 9:00. So the worst thing you can do is show up right before 9:00, bring in your bag from the 7-Eleven for your dinner in your room, and leave early the next day. You might as well just stay at a hotel.
Yeah, you're missing the point of the ryokan.
Yeah.
Is there an official classification of ryokan by the Japanese Bureau of Tourism that says, okay, to be considered a ryokan, you need to check these and these and these boxes? Or is there no such
There
thing?
are restrictions on what to qualify to be an onsen, but to be a ryokan, not really. I mean, for example, this is kind of weird, but there's a ryokan association, and there's also a business hotel association.
Okay.
And so we both are under the same classifications as far as regulations. But we cater to different people, so the associations. But there's some overlap in that. There's some ryokans that are almost like business ryokans and mostly deal with just business travelers. But there's some that, like ours, is mostly for leisure. We get a few business people, but
The reason I was asking is the way you described it as this kind of whole experience where you bring the guests in and you pour them tea and you fully immerse into that experience.
Yeah.
When you now look at, let's say, larger scale ryokan, you have 12 rooms, but there are now ryokans that have, 50, 100 rooms.
Right.
With large scale onsen facilities and so on.
Right.
It feels also more like it's a hotel that is made to look and feel like a ryokan. So you'll have the tatami rooms, you'll have the amenities, you'll have the kaiseki meal, but you completely lose all that personalized service that you described as part of your kind of family-owned business.
You might lose some of the personal service, but you're still going to be wearing a yukata. You can still wander the halls in your yukata versus at a hotel. If you wander the halls in your pajamas, it would be a little odd. But I guess, one other way to explain it is it's kind of like when you go to Disneyland, you wear the Mickey Mouse ears, but you wouldn't wear those outside of Disneyland. So when you go to a ryokan, you get to wear the yukata. You can even like an onsen town, you can wear the wooden geita sandals and go for a walk around town. It's its own entity. It's its own,
like a mini universe in a way. You step outside of the hustle and bustle as you described.
Yeah.
How was it for you then? 20 years ago, I think you said you came back to Japan after selling your house in Seattle and decided to take over this property. I don't believe you had experience before running a ryokan.
Zero. Yeah.
What was it like stepping into those?
So one thing that I guess I need to mention is that the job I was doing in Seattle was working for basically a Japanese trading company. It was more of like a shipping company. And I was an onion man.
An onion man?
I was selling onions from Eastern Washington to Japan.
Okay.
Is among many things. So within that job, on one hand, you're dealing with the very conservative onion grower. And on the other hand, you're dealing, and most of I don't know if you're familiar with onions in Japan, but the area that's most famous for onions is in Awaji
Island off the coast of Osaka.
Yeah.
Pretty large, relatively sweet onions, I think.
Yeah. And so, but there's a little problem there. There's no way that small island can produce all the onions that Japan consumes.
Correct.
But it is the distribution center for onions. So all onions that are imported to Japan, a large percentage go through the port of Kobe to Awaji.
For like a quality check?
Just for distribution purposes.
Interesting.
So anyways, getting back to my background, the whole deal is the importers, I don't mean to sound, racist here, but there's no one on earth that is more detail orientated than an Osaka importer. It was very good training dealing with that level of demands and the stress of impossible orders that come in and jumping through all the hoops and getting the guy his onions. So running a Ryokan, people are like, wow, you have to wake up early, you have to stay up late, there's like no end to the job. Must be a lot of work. But my previous experiences being an exporter was waking up early to talk with the farmer on one hand and staying up late with the difference in the time zones, dealing with the Osaka importer. And onions, well, produce in general doesn't stop growing just because it's New Year's or Christmas or whatever. So it's pretty much an endless.
So you had that long hours, this endless cycle, the seasonless cycle, already ingrained into from your previous experience.
Right.
But I can imagine there are different challenges that come in with running a ryokan when you suddenly have to deal with all the customers, maintaining the place and providing that kind of service.
There's of course you're obviously right, but in the end, the objective is the same: making the customer happy. And in terms of a ryokan, before getting into it, I had the chance to stay at a ryokan as a customer, and so as long as you know what to expect as the customer, you're just flipping it to the other side and being the one to provide that. So I think anyone who's interested in getting into business in Japan, especially because the level of what people demand, the level of service that people demand, I think tends to be pretty high in Japan. So if you experience that as the customer side, it gives you an idea as the operator what to provide. So as far as the differences, it is very demanding, but on the other hand, I don't know. One of the things that when I was struggling with, should we do it? Should we not do it? I remember in particular we had a rush order of at New Year's of actually lettuce, and everything in America shuts down for New Year's. So trying to get the truck, trying to get the flight, space on the airplane, all of that, it was just one hurdle after another that I was able to use all my connections and, hey, I know it's you're supposed to be on a holiday, but can you just do this one favor for me? And I got the guy his lettuce. And he's like, yeah, that's what I paid you to do. I said, do you know how hard I worked to get this to you? He's like, I don't care. It's just the kekka ga subete kekka. It's just the end result is all I'm interested in. I was like, is this where my life is going to end?
Just trading lettuce and onion over New Year's.
Yeah. And so, and meanwhile, this kind of gets me onto the spiritual side, but back in Seattle, I was getting more and more active in our local church. And I'd actually at one point looked at, there's a program within the Catholic Church for it's called a lay minister. And all my activities were kind of pointing in that direction to become a lay minister. But I had applied for a couple programs and got accepted at some point to them, but the final hurdle I was turned down. And I was like, why? And they said, well, you're not grounded enough. It's like, that's why I want to go through this program is to get. Anyway, so I kind of thought that maybe that's some directive from up high to
move back to Japan. To take that new opportunity.
And so once I'd gone through that move back here and started working at the Ryokan, I realized that this is kind of my ministry in life, is to provide this place for guests to relax and get back in touch with themselves, kind of basically recharge their batteries. And so as long as you keep your focus on trying to provide that space for people, the little details don't really matter as much. So
There's a Japanese word that is used a lot, perhaps overused at times, to describe Japanese hospitality, omotenashi.
Omotenashi.
As someone, what's your take on that word? Is this something that as a hospitality professional yourself, you even think about, or do you feel like it's just being used in tourism marketing to highlight something special about Japanese hospitality, or is it just the way of doing things?
Yeah, so I actually give talks on this particular subject, usually an hour-long talk. So I'll try to give the brief version of it. But basically, you are trying to be attentive to what guests are expecting and what they need. And so, like, for example, in my case, like I mentioned, we take guests to their room and pour them their tea and chit chat. And that is the magical connecting point.
Mm-hmm.
You find out what the purpose of their travel is, where they've been going, what they're going to be doing, and you get ideas. So these guys are doing this particular, it's for this anniversary or something, or they went to see this particular castle, so maybe they'd be interested in this type of castle too. And it gives you a chance to get ideas for what you could do to make their stay more special. So to me, the omotenashi part is you have to listen. And because basically it all boils down to, like one of my Ryokan colleagues says, omotenashi is really, really simple. You provide something that the guests want. But when you look into that, sometimes the guests themselves don't even know what they want. So to listen and to discern and get little tips, little hints here and there, you can maybe realize what it is that really the guests are looking for, but maybe they don't even know that they're looking for it. So I'll give you an example. We had some guests from Italy that were in America for their honeymoon. And they said, I was pouring their tea and say, what's it been like traveling Japan? I always ask, have you had any culture shock? And, what type of surprises you had? And, but one thing that they mentioned was that being a tourist in Japan, it's pretty typical to go to shrines and temples. And they said, the buildings are massive. You feel a lot of the power. But you look around, other Japanese people that are going to these temples, they just throw in some coins and clap their hands, and that's it. Is that the extent of religion in Japan? I was like, we can't let them go back to Italy with that impression. So I was like, hey, tomorrow morning, do you have any plans? Like, no. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., do you have any plans? Like, definitely no. So I said, well, meet me in the lobby. There's a temple nearby that does zazen meditation every morning at 5 a.m. I'll be happy to go with you to go to some zazen. So they made the effort to wake up early, and we went to the local temple and did a 1-hour zazen session. And then afterwards, the priest, he invited us in for tea. Tea is a really important part of Japanese culture, Japanese life, I think. So just sitting down for tea with somebody. But anyway, so they had a lot of questions, and he was able to answer. And afterwards, they were almost in tears. Just the whole the zazen meditation can be really, really powerful. It can really hit you. And so if you would have asked them, what is it that you want to do? They wouldn't have even thought of, 5 a.m. zazen.
Yeah.
But listening to them and getting a feel for where they're at in their travels and gave me the clue that maybe this is something that they would appreciate. So, Omotenashi, number one, is discerning what it is the guests want.
Even when they don't know what they want.
Even when they don't want it. And number two, for me, getting up at 5 a.m., that's a real hassle. But I did put in that effort to do
going
that.
Above and beyond.
Yeah.
Would you say that's something that's inherently Japanese as a concept, or would you just say this is great service? But you can find that if you go to, we compare ryokans and hotels, but if you go to a luxury hotel in another country, you might also experience a similar experience.
All right, so let me ask you a question in return. You go to a luxury hotel and get really good service. Is the person providing that doing it just because that's part of their mission, or are they doing it to get a good tip?
It's a hard question to answer. I guess it will depend on the employee that is helping you. But so my understanding then would be that the main difference with Omotenashi would be that Omotenashi is a personal desire to provide that kind of hospitality beyond I'm paid to do that.
Right, exactly. So you can get good service and friendly service at a restaurant in the States, but it's always in the back of my mind. Is this person just naturally friendly, or they just want a good tip? Versus in Japan, you go to Omotenashi at the Ryokan level, I think goes to a deeper level, but even going into a convenience store on the corner here in Osaka, irashaimase. I think there's more to it than just. And then one thing, and when I do get my 1 hour talks to people here in Japan, one thing I try to stress is that. Okay, I'll give you another example. There's this one lady who is like a kind of a consultant for Nagano Prefecture on Omotenashi, and she was a producer of Omotenashi, that could be considered a job description, for a ryokan in Kyushu, Yufuin. And when she first started interacting with the staff, she went with one of the veteran Nakai-san, the waitresses, the room staff, as she was serving guests their dinner. And when she went to take the rice, she had two shamoji, the spoons for the rice. She's like, isn't that kind of a waste? Why don't you just take one? She's like, no. You go to the room, serve their guests their rice with one of the shamoji, but the rice gets stuck on the shamoji. You don't want to leave that for the guests, so you take that back with you. You leave the clean one there. And so the consultant is like, that's Omotenashi. All right, everybody, let's do that. Put it in the manual. So to me, Omotenashi it's got to go beyond the manual.
I see.
It's got to be more of a personal.
Is this something then that can be taught or learned, or is it something that certain people are more inclined to do because they have this sensitivity for service and the desire to provide unique and memorable experiences?
So I guess my answer to that would be, you have to stay at a ryokan to be on the receiving end of it in order to be able to provide it. So yeah, I guess maybe if you go to a ryokan and the extra service that's being provided isn't something that really impresses you, then maybe you wouldn't be a person that would be able in a position to be able to provide it. But if you are attentive to all the little details, then I think that is an indication that you might be in a position to be able to provide those details.
Going into Ryokan management and kind
Yeah.
of starting to welcome your first few guests and applying Omotenashi, what were some of the things that after a while you were surprised about that you didn't expect you'd have to take care of these things when managing a Ryokan? What goes into the behind the scenes that people don't see when they're on the receiving end of Omotenashi?
Okay, so yeah, a lot of the details. I mean, a lot of the details probably in the overall picture of things really don't matter. The more, I don't know, subtle. But like when you set the room up, you have the table in the middle, and then the chairs with the zabuton, the cushion.
Mm-hmm.
The cushion always has one side that has a zipper on it. So you always try to put that on the side that's not facing the entrance.
Oh, interesting.
Just little things like that. When I do the futons at nighttime, I always try to picture, okay, is this just like two friends or is it a couple? That is going to matter into how close or how far apart you put the futons, and the cover. I fold it one way. If it's coupled, though, I'll fold it so that it's kind of like, a romantic love type ambiance. So little things like that when I first started working at the Ryokan, there's reservation sites in Japan called like a Jalan and Rakuten. And back then, there was a physical person that had a physical territory that would physically come into your ryokan on every couple months or so, and you would physically talk with them and get ideas for different plans to make and stuff like that. Nowadays, it's all
digital.
Yeah. But the lady who was our representative for Jalan at the time was a veteran. She'd been in the business for decades. And I was like, do you mind staying at our ryokan one night and just critiquing us, our operation? And she's like, yeah, sure. And it just so happened that she came to stay when a new rep was coming in. And so the two of them stayed, and we provided our normal omotenashi. And at the end, I was like, so how was it? And the veteran lady asked the new person, so what'd you think? She said, oh, it was wonderful. The food was so good. The baths were so nice. Oh, I loved it. And the veterans lady like, you're not giving Tyler anything to go off of with that type of a response. And so she's like, okay, first of all, I came into the room. One of the curtains was tied up. The other one was kind of loose. You got to do one or the other. You can't have them both random like that. When you did the rice in my rice bowl, you just put the rice in the rice bowl. You didn't shape it into a nice little mound. All these little details.
They paid attention to.
She paid attention to. And so it was a really good experience for me to take our operation to the next level.
You also have an onsen with indoor and outdoor bath. And you said earlier that regulations for onsen are kind of a bit more strict and classified. What is an onsen, what is not. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so technically speaking, an onsen, in order to qualify as an onsen, you need to have a minimum temperature of the water, and you have to have a minimum amount of certain minerals.
Okay.
In order to qualify technically as an onsen in Japan. And then for our onsen baths, our town has enough of an onsen, the hot water supply, that we don't have to recirculate the baths. So a lot of places that don't have a lot of onsen water, basically you have the onsen water coming into the yuguchi, the spout, and then it gets recirculated. And in that case, you have to worry about different bacteria and stuff. So usually you have to put in, what's that called?
Chlorine.
Chlorine, thank you.
But there was a big scandal, I think, a couple of years ago with that onsen in somewhere Kyushu.
Yeah.
Where they hadn't really changed the water or cleaned it
Well, like a couple times a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with the recirculation, I don't actually know how often you do need to change the water out, but I'm pretty sure it's more than just twice a year. But in our case, it's naturally free flowing. So the water that goes in overflows and then goes out to the
So it's
river.
always fresh water inside.
It's always fresh water. So we don't have to use the chlorine, but we do have to drain the baths every day and scrub them every day.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was cleaning the baths has always been a big part of my job as a Ryokan owner. And yeah, that was a good experience. I had gone like 2 years of every single day during the bath cleaning them. And I complained to one of my colleagues in town, man, I got to do this every day for the rest of my life. He's like, no, do it every day for 3 years. And then get someone trained to take it over for you. And he said, if you do it every day for 3 years, you will learn every nook and cranny, every single little detail of what it takes for the onsens in terms of keeping them clean. And you have to have it tested a couple times a year to make sure there is no bacteria. And the whole onsen, for our town, the onsen, the water pressure isn't very, it's not like a tap where you just open the tap, boom, comes out. It's a very low pressure.
Yeah, like a constant small flow of onsen water.
And the minerals build up eventually, and so you got to do extra cleaning for stuff like that.
What's the minimum temperature?
Our baths the temperature for our baths is 43 degrees. I don't at where it comes in, and the bath itself is probably then about 41 degrees Celsius. Outdoor baths are probably more like 39, 40 degrees Celsius. And then, but so anyways, his whole idea was, as a Ryokan owner, half your job is within the Ryokan, but a good owner, half the job is outside the Ryokan in terms of, it doesn't matter how great of a Ryokan you have, if no one knows about it, it's not going to do any good. So you have to promote your Ryokan, you have to promote the town, you have to promote the prefecture. So there's a lot of my job is outside the Ryokan, doing things to make the town more attractive and trying to promote the town. And also I work a little bit with the prefecture.
So as a Ryokan, you kind of become part of the community and part of the Ryokan's association of the area and the tourism bureau.
So yeah, you can't be stuck cleaning the baths every day. So like right now we do have a college kid that comes in and does most of the...
So you've done more than your 3 years of scrubbing the bath.
Yeah, and so beyond having to do it every day. So, because if you're stuck with that, then you can't do the outside stuff. So, yeah. So then, regarding the baths, one other big thing that I've done is when we first moved back, our Ryokan had the men's bath and the women's bath. They were both just the indoor baths, no outdoor baths. Okay. And guests would say, the onsen water is nice, but I'd like to bathe in the starlight as I soak in the onsen. Yeah, outdoor bath. Yeah, I personally love those myself, but we don't have the money. So I was complaining about that to one of my Ryokan colleagues over a few sakes, and he's like, hey, I'll loan you the tools. I'll teach you how to do it. Make the outdoor bath.
You can do it like this by yourself?
It's quite a lot that went into it, but yeah. So we have an outdoor bath made by hand. Got river rocks from the Chikuma River runs through the middle of our town, and so it's the longest river in Japan. And
Okay.
it's always been one of my pet peeves about the town is you got the levee because the river historically does flood, and so people tend to look at the river as something that's dangerous, not something that you want to interact with.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a levee, so people kind of have their backs turned to the river. But I grew up in Seattle climbing mountains and rivers. That's a big part of my identity is, from coming from Seattle. So I wanted to have some of those river rocks for the bath to give you that kind of a connection with the river. So yeah, I learned how to make the sides of the bath and the base of the bath with the river rocks, and learn how to do all the bring the piping to bring in the onsen water, and I had to bring in a lot of dirt around the bath. And so, have you ever seen those? It's called in Japanese a unikusha. It's like basically a truck with a crane on it.
Yeah, small ones.
Yeah. So a buddy of a buddy lent me his unique crane truck, and it's like, you know how to use this, right? It's like, oh, I played with Tonka toys in the sandbox as a kid, no problem. He's like, I'll show you how to do it. So everything was a learning experience, and it took about half a year
To make the whole outdoor bath.
Yeah.
That's cool though. Now your guests can enjoy your homemade, hand-built onsen.
That was kind of a neat thing too, is when we first moved back, we had about gosenman, that's like what, $500,000 in debt. And the annual revenue was about half of that, which is a very unhealthy
You mean the
fiscal situation.
Ryokan had that debt?
Yeah. And so we, after I built the bath, people would call up and say, so I'm interested in making a reservation. By the way, do you guys have an outdoor bath? No, sorry, click. But now we could say, yeah, go in an outdoor bath. I made it with my own hands. Like, what? I got to check that out. So we got a big bump in the number of reservations thanks to me putting in the effort to the blood, sweat, and tears to make the outdoor bath. And ever since then, I've built on that, and now we have actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 outdoor baths that I've basically built myself.
Wow, 6 outdoor baths and 12 rooms. So you have really plenty of choice in the type of onsen you can enjoy.
Yeah.
I can imagine you had like thousands of guests over the last couple of decades at Ryokan. Do you notice a big difference in how foreign tourists enjoy the space and how Japanese local tourists enjoy it?
Yeah, foreign guests. Well, for most Japanese people, the way to take a bath and even some simple things like the way to put on a yukata are pretty ingrained in their, lifestyle. So, but foreigners, sometimes it's their first time staying at a onsen, staying at a ryokan. And so we do take the time to explain, how I take them to the baths and show them this is the changing room, explain how to do it. When I take them to the room, here's your yukata. Have you worn a yukata before? So I explain about left on top. Obi goes around this level for guys, a little bit higher for ladies. And so there's a big difference in terms of familiarity with the whole process of staying at a ryokan. I also, for foreigners, usually take the time to sit down with them when they first arrive and give them an explanation about the area. Our particular city, it's called Chikuma City, but it's got 3 claims to fame. One is the onsen, which our onsen town is called Togoro Kamiyamada, which is way too long of a name, so I'm trying to promote it as the onsen town. Anyway, so we've got the onsen town. It's also got Japan's #1 apricot growing area.
Okay.
So the town's really, really proud of the apricots.
When are they in season?
Right now, I should have brought you some. Right now, it just actually about 3 or 4 days ago, the season started.
So right now we're recording this in
late
middle
June,
of June.
yeah.
Middle late June.
And so it's usually from late June to early July is when the apricot season happens.
Okay.
The apricot blossoms are usually around the beginning of April. So that's a big feature for the town. Another one is the mountain behind our town is called Obasteyama. Have you ever heard of the Obasteyama legend? Oba is like grandma, and Stater is to throw away. So it's about a time when there wasn't enough food. You had to take the old people to the top of the mountain and throw them away. The legend itself does have a happy ending. So I kind of go into that when I talk to the guests. And then on the side of the mountain are some rice fields that are terraced. And they're kind of unique because when the moon comes up, it supposedly reflects in the individual rice fields. So there's kind of a romantic, I don't know, the moon has a big part in our town.
So sounds like a very nice area, plenty to do and enjoy for people to stay at, who stay at Kamese.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that they will also enjoy is the food.
Yeah.
At the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned the Ryokan has the typical 11-course kaiseki style. How do you manage this? You said you're not the one to cook. So at the Ryokan, what kind of goes into the whole production for these kaiseki? It seems very complex.
So we're fortunate to have a professional chef, and he puts in a lot of effort. Each of those 11 dishes, none of it is something you just take out of the freezer and heat up in the microwave. He's always doing something to each of the dishes. And it reflects, we're out in the mountains, so we don't have an ocean nearby, so it's more mountain river fish, it's more mountain mushrooms or the wild mountain vegetables. So I think that's kind of the thing about staying at a ryokan is it's also an introduction, where whatever ryokan you're staying at, it's an introduction to that region's cuisine. And so our chef is really careful about using locally raised produce, and we try to make sure that guests get an appreciation of Nagano by having our chef's meal.
How much planning goes into those meals? Because if you have 11 dishes every day, and I imagine they somewhat change from day to day too.
It's usually, there is a seasonal change to it, but for the most part, it doesn't change that often. So, but guests don't usually come weekly. They usually come maybe Japanese guests, even if they're repeat guests, it's usually maybe once a season or something. So they would see the variety of, as they, over the course of as they stay.
So it's you, your wife, you have a chef, you mentioned someone that is helping with some of the room housekeeping. How many people do you need to run and operate the 12-room ryokan with kaiseki meals and onsen?
Yeah, so basically, I've got my wife and I and the professional chef, and then we also have one lady who is full-time now, helping out with the serving and with the cleaning. And then we just have about 10 people that work part-time that we just kind of hire on a spot basis as we need them. So, yeah, that's kind of the tricky thing about ryokan is if we were to grow the business, like add rooms, then we would probably need to get an extra an assistant for the chef. So that's quite having to cover that salary then.
You need to increase your revenue, so you need to eat more rooms, and it kind of it's hard to find the balance.
Yeah, it is. And like one of my colleagues, his inn is a little bit smaller than ours, and he actually does the cooking. They don't have a chef, so in interacting with him, I've realized that he doesn't have the time then to be able to do much for the town. So I think we kind of have a good balance. Like we have the professional chef, but only one, so we can't get extra creative with the food. But at least we have him so that I don't have to worry about the food myself. Just leave it up to him. And he actually makes more money than I do. Professional chefs in Japan, they've gone through the schools and everything, and they're craftsmen and get compensated appropriately.
At the time you decided to take over the Ryokan, you mentioned that it's the only one left in the town that still has the original wooden buildings and this kind of historical feel for it, whereas most others have been torn down and rebuilt as like a multi-story concrete building.
Yeah.
For people traveling around Japan nowadays, we see a lot of those older ryokan from the 80s, whether they are concrete buildings or not, kind of being empty, falling apart. And then we see the others that are receiving investments and the facade still looks old, but inside most of the rooms are renovated and new. What is the current status of the ryokan kind of business in Japan? Are they declining, increasing, or?
It's getting more and more corporate. Like in our town, there's 30 inns. And so on one hand, it's getting more corporate, but on the other hand, you're getting more guest houses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think younger people nowadays, if they're interested in running a businesses in the industry, the idea of opening up a hotel or opening up a ryokan doesn't really interest them, but the guest house is kind of more approachable. And
Guest house, bed and breakfast perhaps as well.
Bed and breakfast, yeah. And the idea is like each of our rooms are private, and the guests, we have the interaction with them in terms of, taking to the room, pouring their tea. That level of interaction, I guess on one hand we get calls a lot of times by companies to say, hey, why don't we put in a kind of an automatic check-in feature for your ryokan so they don't have to take the time out of your busy schedule to, actually deal with the check-in. It's all automated. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, I want that time with the guests. But on the other hand, at a guest house, typically you have that. Plus the owner would probably invite the people to cook dinner at nighttime and have share a meal as well. So for me personally, my balance is, I love I don't want to automate the check-in. I want that to be a hands-on approach. But once the guests have had their dinners and had their baths, I don't want to drink with them in the lobby or something like that. It's kind of, after my day's done, I kind of want my own private time. But I think some younger people want that drinking with the guests in the lobby afterwards, or even eating with them, much more communal. Mm-hmm. So I think, so we have actually now 3 guest houses in our town on one hand. And on the other hand, a lot of the bigger ryokans have been bought out by corporate groups.
So the ryokan stays the same, but it's now management by like a hotel management corporation. I see.
And so the people that are working there are just, yatawari, they've just been hired to work there, and they don't necessarily have a strong connection with the town. So
then you lose that omotenashi.
You lose that level of omotenashi, I think, yeah.
So family-owned ryokans are far and few between, and you're one of the remaining ones in your area, at least.
Yeah.
What are the things you want to do now, moving forward? You have taken over the ryokan, transformed it, improved it, and found a balance for yourself.
Yeah.
Is this something you just want to kind of continue and enjoy in the future, or do you have other plans?
Yeah, so basically my wife and I are 3rd generation owners, and our son graduated university, and when he was getting ready to graduate, we have 3 kids, and the oldest son mentioned that he would like to take on the inn.
Oh, nice.
And so he, in this business, it's typical, like for the son, if he wants to take on the inn, to first work at another inn, kind of like do an internship, And then after a year or two, then come back and start working at the family business. One of the main reasons is like when my wife and I moved back 19 years ago, we had a lot of clashes with her mom. And part of it was just intergenerational. A big part of it was. But another big part of it was 20 years ago was kind of right when Japan's travel culture was evolving. Before that, most of the leisure in Japan was like group travel, mostly business groups, company groups, or neighborhood groups, and mostly guys. Mm-hmm. And they would go to the status place, which one of them at that point was the big Zenkoji temple in Nagano City. And then they do a little pilgrimage there, come to a resort town like ours, have a big banquet, call in the geisha, live it up for the night, and then go back to their regular lives. Japan's travel culture has evolved. It's now people going to places they want to go to, people they want to be with, to do things they want to do, much more individualized. And so like we would, the online travel agents were becoming more and more prevalent, just as we were when we moved back.
Well, like Rakuten and
Jalen,
Jalen, you were mentioning before.
So the reservations you get through that are usually couples, or maybe, couples with one of their parents, or families with little kids, 2, 3, maybe 4 people in a room. And the mother-in-law is like, you got to squeeze 5 or 6 people in for the room to make this pay. And it's like, that's not going to happen. That's not the way people are traveling now. But she had it stuck in her mind that that's what you have to do to make this business work. And another factor is when you have a group, there's usually the kanji-san, the person in charge. Mm-hmm. And as a ryokan, your job is to make that person happy. It doesn't matter about these other people in the group.
I see.
Versus when you have individual travelers, you got to make sure that the mom is happy, that the father's happy, that the kids are happy, that the older parents are happy. And so like we took one of our rooms that hadn't been used and turned it into a playroom with like a ping pong table and little Thomas the Train toys and a little kids kitchen set for the girls to play with, and a bunch of Legos and
a little bit for everyone.
Yeah. And so now with our son in line to move back, what I kind of feel is that this whole Corona, the COVID experience, has also really reshaped how people are traveling now. Like for our ryokan, one thing that we've are gradually doing is instead of having everyone eat in kind of a big common room with a bunch of tables set up, we're trying to set up private space for each individual group to family or to eat in. And rather than making the men's and women's baths, making them bigger or something, we've so far updated 2 of the guest rooms to have their own private onsen, outdoor onsen bath.
Private onsens also available at Kamisei now. That's very nice.
So I think Japan's travel culture is, again, not just Japan, but the world's travel culture is evolving. It's now much more having people have their own private space, not being with a bunch of people they don't know.
And so, as a ryokan owner, the challenges for the coming years will be to kind of adapt to those changes and eventually now maybe have a 4th generation owner coming up soon.
Right.
And that's going to be the next big passage of knowledge challenge.
Yes.
Very exciting. Tyler, we talked about a lot of things relating to ryokan. Do you feel like there's something that we haven't talked about that people should know about a ryokan, about staying at the ryokan, or about how to enjoy the experience fully? Or did we cover it pretty well?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add is, like I kind of mentioned, is each Ryokan is like a gateway into that community, that region, and everything from the cuisine, but also like the gardens and the decorations, the artwork. It should be kind of a touchstone for that region. So I encourage people staying at a ryokan to take notice of little details and ask, what's this in your room? You're gonna have a tokonoma, the alcove, decorative alcove with like either a painting or a scroll or something on the wall. Ask, what's this about?
Why those kanji? Why this drawing? Why these flowers?
Yeah,
All have a meaning.
because a lot of them have a story. Yeah, and then what other thing I think your listeners might be interested in is this kind of might be another tangent that you're welcome to cut, but a lot of people say, well, moving especially into the countryside in Japan, people tend to be very conservative and not welcoming to outsiders. So I get asked a lot, how has that been trying to fit in with the community? And one thing I wanted to share with you is that for me, I found a shortcut.
Okay.
The Matsuri, the festival. I personally love festivals.
And now the season, summer season. Is
And now we're
Matsuri.
coming up on the big summer festival. And so my first year in Nagano, in our town for the big summer festival, each little neighborhood has one person on the organizing committee. And my neighbor's like, okay, so you're going to be on the organizing committee for our neighborhood for this year. I'm like, I don't know anything about the town. How can I be on the organizing committee? That said, if you do the Matsuri organizing committee, you will know all about the town. And so we start out, there's, fireworks and things that cost money. So the first role of the organizing committee is to go around and get donations. And so in going around to all the various businesses in the town, you get to know what businesses are out there. You get to know which of those businesses are supportive of the town and which are just corporate companies that have no interest in the town. And I basically, and that's just, and then the day itself and all the preparation, I basically gave like 2 months of my life to the town for the festival. And I think people recognize that. They're like, oh, he's one of us. And so, for example, there's one other American that had been living in the town that had moved out, and I got to know him. I was like, how come you moved out? He's like, I never got beyond the konnichiwa, beyond the greetings. It's like, what are you talking about? With the Matsuri, you get so deep into the town, almost to the point where, this any gathering festival, right, is going to have a lot of sake involved too. And it can really get to be too much. It's like, how could you not have gotten into that? It's like, oh, those Matsuri things, who does that? So
Yeah, that's not the right attitude.
especially in the countryside, it's I think participating in the summer festival, in the festival, is a shortcut to getting accepted into the town.
So join the organizing committee of your local Matsuri if you want to be part of the community and meet everyone and know everything that's going on.
This is Tyler's biggest advice. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler, for coming, stopping by on your way to Osaka to share your story, share your insight into running a ryokan. It was super interesting.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll be back again in the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future conversations. And we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this episode, here are a couple more that we think you'll enjoy. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you next time.